It's Monday, with about a month left of the legislative session, which means there's a lot going on down at the State House. What's happening with voting, drag shows, and the education savings account. We've got all that for you. You know, love will make you do some crazy things, like maybe a murder-suicide, or maybe just a double murder in a love triangle. It's all in the history of Idaho. We're looking into the murder of Lizzie King, whose gravestone still stands in Boot Hill Cemetery. And speaking of history, Idaho is known for its beauty. Above ground or below it. You ever wonder why Idaho's called the Gem State? Well, there's two answers. Which camp do you stand in? We've used the automobile analogy before when it comes to what's happening at the State House. You know, going full throttle, grinding into the next gear. How about where the rubber meets the road? That seems to be what's happening this week, with several bills getting a little more than just a kick of the tires. Chief Political Reporter Joe Paris has details on the Citizens Initiative rights, laws controlling drag shows, and today was the big day for ESAs in the Senate, the education savings accounts. Joe?
Oh, yeah, Brian. There's going to be a lot of discussion about what happened today for weeks to come. But yes, there is a new angle to the citizen initiative process. And this is really what was a big conversation in the Senate today. In recent years, lawmakers have pitched the idea to make the process of getting a citizen initiative on the ballot a little more difficult. So right now in the state of Idaho, you need to get citizen signatures from 6% of registered voters in 18 of the state's 35 legislative districts. A proposal at the State House, though, would make that mark 6% in 35 of 35 districts, so all across the state. Now, critics of the idea say that 35 of 35 districts make it almost impossible to achieve a citizen initiative. And lawmakers actually passed a bill a few years back that changed it to the 35 district mark, but the Idaho Supreme Court threw it out, saying that it's unconstitutional. So what makes this effort this year different? Well, lawmakers are voting to put the question on the ballot in 2024. Let the people of Idaho decide on this question. The Supreme Court basically said, lawmakers, you can't force this on people, but, well, the people could do it to themselves. So here's some of the back and forth from the Senate floor today.
This Senate joint resolution is not taking away people's vote. It is giving more citizens of Idaho a voice.
This resolution will make it possible for Idaho citizens to have their say only if they employ funding from out of state, in my view. And I'd point out that the way it is now, everybody gets to vote anyway. For these reasons, I will be voting against this resolution.
I stand with the people. I want to protect their fundamental right, and I do not think that this resolution should go forward.
So I like SJR 101 because it raises the bar to match what we essentially have here, a rigorous process where all legislative districts in the state get a chance to weigh in at 2 stages of the process before a proposal becomes law. And that's why I stand today in support of SJR 101.
So after extended debate, which was a theme in the Senate today, the joint resolution passed on a vote that clears the needed 2/3 threshold. So if the Idaho House does the same in the coming weeks, you'll see a constitutional amendment on your ballot in 2024. Also for you on a busy Monday, a major local and national conversation got its first look in committee this morning, legislation that would regulate, quote, sexual exhibitions. Now, what does that mean? Well, this is the drag shows in front of minors conversation that has been a major debate in the Treasure Valley and across Idaho. And the bill sponsors say that the proposed law, quote, creates a duty of care for promoters, organizations, and performers of sexual exhibitions to ensure that they take reasonable steps to restrict access of minors. Additionally, the bill would prohibit the use of public facilities and public assets for sexual exhibitions. Blaine Kanzati, who's the president of the Idaho Family Policy Center, he worked on this idea with lawmakers. Here's his pitch from today.
It's also important to say that this RS would not target any specific type of sexual exhibition. The requirements of this proposed legislation would apply equally to drag shows, to erotic dancing, to burlesque, etc. It does not matter whether we're talking about a sexually explicit striptease or a sexually explicit drag show. Neither belongs in a public park, a public facility, or other places where children are present. We are not talking about humorous gender-bending roles in Shakespearean theater. We're not talking about cheerleading performances at high school football games. We are talking about live performances that involve sexual conduct. These sexually explicit performances could still take place on private property so long as promoters and organizers took reasonable steps to restrict the access of children. So if you want to feature a drag show or erotic dancing, that would still be okay, so long as you check IDs at the door.
So the legislation is clear, by the way. Parents can't choose to take minors to events described in the legislation. Gonzatti compared it to taking a child to a strip club. It's not allowed, even if a parent wants to do so. Process-wise, this is the very first appearance of this legislation. The committee did print it, so we'll get a full hearing very soon. Finally for you, in what will likely be the longest debate of the year, Idaho senators went back and forth for about 2 hours on the merits and features of the proposed Freedom and Education Savings Accounts, ESAs. Long story short for you, this version of the ESA bill, it looked to allow families to use public dollars on private education costs like tuition at a private or religious school, or using funds to take care of educational expenses as a part of a homeschool environment or learning pods. Here's a taste of both sides of the debate for you.
By introducing universal education choice, we introduce needed competition into the current education model to improve results for all Idaho students and Idaho families. And by introducing competition, we introduce accountability.
Because right now there is no incentive for a public school to compete for students or funding. It's automatic. Where a bill like this, introducing competition into the system, would incentivize them to compete. And that's why I think this is a good bill. And
this legislature established and maintained a general, uniform, and thorough system of free common public schools. This legislation takes away from that maintenance, takes away from establishing and maintaining that general, uniform, and thorough system of free common public schools. It violates my oath and it violates the Idaho Constitution. For that reason, I will oppose this bill.
Just to be clear, there is absolutely no accountability for homeschoolers, for private schools or religious schools, or any oversight whatsoever. We won't receive any reports on how well those students are doing. We'll have absolutely no way to know if this is working out well for them or not.
So, Brian, the first real run on ESA legislation, it fails, 12 in favor, 23 against.
And that was the big hang-up for a lot of people, was this lack of oversight that was not included in this bill, specifically saying any private school, anybody who's homeschooling, will not have to answer any state or federal agencies when it comes to just continue doing what you're doing, and you'll still get this money, kind of thing.
So 1038 is dead for now.
Dead.
We'll see what happens from here.
Quick question. If you're playing the game of Jeopardy, let's say, and the answer came up, humorous, gender-bending performance, you would ding in and say...
You could say, what is a drag show?
What is a drag show?
Depends on the environment.
Thank you very much, Joe.
Thank you.
Okay, so that vote today on the ESAs, it was basically about ripping off the Band-Aid. The signs were there during and after the public testimony phase in the Senate Education Committee. The vast majority testified that day against Senate Bill 1038, well, actually over 2 days' time. Yet the committee, loaded with co-sponsors of the bill, sent it to the Senate floor anyway with a vote of 63. Chairman Dave Lent, the lone Republican, voting against it. Now, that was 12 days ago, and since then, we've kind of waiting for this floor debate, and we've been hearing some rumblings that they're trying to work out some things, maybe fix a few things here and there, but today they decided to delay lunch and just rip off the Band-Aid. Senate President Pro Tem Chuck Winder, who spoke against 1038 today on the floor, calling it another effort to transfer money to a select group of people, said he knew about 2/3 of his Senate colleagues would be joining him in his nay say. He agreed this bill would mostly benefit private school students, with virtually no benefit to public school students. And he told us today he wanted a higher standard because, well, it would send money to private schools. He wanted it to be more specific in areas, and overall, he just wanted a better bill written, which is how he also said he tried to help. He also told us that, by the way, he tried to help the bill sponsors do that, to come up with a better bill. Republican Senators Brian Lenny and Tammy Nichols, he wanted them to help make it easier for some of these senators to swallow. But he said they were truly in a ride or die situation.
The sponsors did not want it to go to the amending order. We had worked with them for several weeks, suggesting amendments. We'd had discussions with them. They chose not to do that. And so our alternative was either pass it or kill it.
Specifically, what was your biggest issue with it?
I think basically there were kind of two biggest issues, in my opinion, was the idea that only a portion of the money had to be used for education. I didn't understand that, and it wasn't clear how that would work out. The other thing was they set up a parental oversight committee, which is a good idea, but in order to be on that committee, you had to have a child in the program, and they had to have received money. So to me, that created immediate conflict of interest with taxpayer dollars.
So this one was just pretty wide open. That was the problem.
Pretty wide open, yeah.
It's not the end of this, though, right?
Well, it's not the end of it. You're going to see 2 or 3 or 4 more bills before the session's over, and probably one of them will get passed.
And those bills could come from either side of the State House. Senator Winder said any bill which removed his concerns would get his vote. But he also pointed out the other issues brought up by his colleagues. No cap on the fiscal note, he said, and more specific focus of the program towards students in need versus just anyone who wanted to sign up for it. We did try to get reaction from the co-sponsors, that'd be Senators Nichols and Lenny, about this failed vote and find out why they refused to make any changes to the bill prior to the vote, but they declined to speak with us. Okay, so early voting is coming up, starting March 14th, today, I should say, for the March 14th consolidated election. Early voting starts today. You'll find a lot of school bonds and levies on the upcoming ballot. For Ada County, you can vote early in Cunit City Hall. That's happening there. Ada County elections, Monday to Friday, from 8 to 5 p.m. You can do that up until Friday, March 10th. You can vote early at the Cunit City Hall or at the Ada County Elections Office. If you want to early vote in Caldwell, well, you can do that through March 10th. Also, at the Canyon County Elections Office, again, Monday through Friday, 8 in the morning until 5 at night. It is too late to register to vote online, by the way, for this election, but don't worry, you can register at the poll with your photo ID, and you also have to have a proof of residency. And if you want to find out what is on the ballot coming up, take a look at our voter guide. It's at our website at ktvb.com, or you can do this. Text the word VOTE to the number on your screen, the same number you used to text into this show, 208-321-5614. And we will send you a link directly to your phone. Her expenditures comply with Idaho law. That's the determination of Ada County after they looked into how former Boise City Council member Lisa Sánchez spent her campaign money. Last month, a campaign finance complaint was filed with the Ada County Clerk's Office by the Idaho Freedom Foundation, claiming the amount and where Sánchez spent her campaign funds was, quote unquote, suspicious, outside the scope of campaigning. She spent $14,655 in 2022, which wasn't an election year. A good chunk of that money was spent on food, places like Chandler's Steakhouse, Goldie's Breakfast and Bistro, grocery stores like Winco and Albertsons, plus other things like $100 at a candle shop, which was listed as, quote, a general operational expense. Payments to a cell phone carrier, money was also sent to a personal P.O. box, those kind of things. $14,655 seems like a lot compared to her colleagues. For example, Councilmember Lucy Willett spent more than $3,300. Council President Holly Wooding spent nearly $3,000, and the other 3 spent less than $20. Council members Patrick Bajent and Lane Clegg each spent nothing over 2022. Well, the Ada County Elections Office, with help from the Ada County Prosecutor's Office, took a look at that $14,000 in spending in the disclosure report and found it was within Idaho's finance laws, which doesn't let elected officials to use campaign funds for personal use. Sánchez, for her part, had always contended this spending wasn't for personal items. When she was told last week she was cleared of any wrongdoing, Sánchez said, I appreciate the work of the Ada County Elections Office, and I am pleased they have confirmed my campaign expenditures comply with Idaho law. I'm committed to transparency as I do the work I love in serving the people of Boise. And she wants to continue that. Removed from her North End rental home, then removed from her city council seat because she no longer lived in her district, the saga of Lisa Sánchez continues. She has reapplied for the council seat she lost and has apparently hired an attorney to help in that regard. Boise Mayor Lauren McLean announced Sánchez is one of 9 people she will interview for the city council seat vacancies. Time will tell if this outcome from this expenditure report might help with that too. Have you ever heard the name Agnes Elizabeth King? Well, to her friends and to her husbands, she was known as Lizzie King, a woman with a name and a story they write songs about.
By a lonely western valley, on the hill lies Lizzie King, while the years with silent footsteps steal away.
Catchy little number, isn't it? That's The Grave of Lizzie King, it's called, and that little earworm has some history to it. That lonely western valley told about in that tune is likely Bonanza, Idaho, about 22 miles northeast of Stanley, where the legend of a tragic love triangle between Lizzie and her lovers played out to a deadly finale. According to Ancestry.com, Agnes Elizabeth King was born in 1844 in London, England, and died at the age of 36 in Bonanza in 1880. Her grave marker still stands in Boot Hill Cemetery, and it looks like it's made of wood. Dying young wasn't unheard of in those days, but how Lizzie left this world, well, that's the real story. And one told in the Yankee Fork Herald and reprinted in the August 20th, 1880 edition of the Idaho Semi-Weekly. The headline, "A Double Tragedy. Robert Hawthorne Takes the Life of Himself and Wife." The story goes, Robert Hawthorne and Mrs. Lizzie King were married at the Yankee Fork Dance Hall on August 5th, 1880 in Bonanza, Idaho. The honeymoon, though, didn't last long, like days, because according to the newspaper account, on the Wednesday following the wedding day, there was, quote, "a tragedy enacted there that sent a thrill of horror through our usually quiet camp." Right there. According to the article, shots were heard, and Hawthorne and King were both found dead in that Yankee Fort dance hall, the same place they were married. A murder-suicide with a pistol purchased just days before. As to a motive, still unclear, but legend has it Lizzie was originally married to Richard King, and they came to Bonanza in 1878, just 2 years prior, where Richard became business partners with a man named William J. Dillon. Okay, so there was an argument over some land, and Dillon allegedly shot and killed Richard King. Dillon was sentenced to 10 years in prison, but there was also another man tied to this, mentioned along the way, who may have done it because he was in love with Lizzie, but that wasn't verified. In swoops another man named Robert Hawthorne, who apparently made promises to pay off Lizzie's debts, or at least her dead husband's debts, which he apparently did, or at least I guess he relieved her from them in a gruesome way because he didn't have any money. He didn't actually have money to pay off those debts in the first place. Which one's the real story? Well, we'll likely never know, since those 3 lonely graves in the Boot Hill Cemetery tell no tales. And Lizzie King's 2 daughters were living with her parents in London at the time.
We're in for another eventful evening of weather, much like last night, as this precipitation continues to push out of the southwest. But this is really sort of Act 1, Scene 2 after last night, because this active weather will continue through the entire week ahead. A lot of energy just hanging around the region. Will continue to keep that chance of snow showers around southern Idaho. We get a bit of a break Wednesday into Thursday, but then another system expected into the weekend will bring more snow. And yes, many of these times we'll see that snow coming all the way down to the valley floors. So some accumulation is possible overnight tonight and through the rest of this evening, a coating up to 1 inch in some locations of the Treasure Valley, up into the mountains 2 to 4 inches, generally speaking. Then roll this ahead Tuesday into Wednesday, and this is where my concern is. Into Wednesday morning, the potential for enough snow accumulation to really cause some problems for the morning commute. So anywhere from 1 to 3 inches for the Treasure Valley. It's a possibility that we're watching really, really closely at this point. We'll continue to update you as details become a little more fine-tuned and clear. 41 degrees for a high tomorrow. It'll feel a bit like today with breezy to windy conditions continuing as well. I have put up the first alert weather banner for Wednesday for that potential for a snowy morning commute. Again, we'll watch it really closely, and you can too at ktvb.com.
All right, the big question that's always out there, I guess, why is Idaho called the Gem State? For those of you who just moved here, you may have asked yourself that a couple of times. There are two camps to the answer to this question, but only one has science on its side, and it has to do with Idaho's rich geologic history. Rocks here are hundreds of millions, if not billions of years old. Age before beauty, though. Not in this case, because it's the pretty ones that have given the Gem State the attention.
We are, of course, called the Gem State, although opinions differ as to whether that's due to the presence of gemstones and minerals, or whether it's just because of the beautiful scenery.
Well, according to visitidaho.org, we are in fact called the Gem State because of the gems found here. Dr. Virginia Gellerman is a research geologist with the Idaho Geological Survey. She says some of the gems found here are very unique.
We have our state gemstone, the Idaho star garnet, which is found only in 2 parts of the world, India and Idaho. And you can actually prospect and pan for garnets thanks to the U.S. Forest Service garnet dig at North Idaho.
You know, you can dig for stones like quartz, jasper, and agates here. And there's the star garnet, I believe, right there, right? One of them, or part of it? All right, yeah. Agates also found here in southern Idaho. And it's a practice called rock hounding, getting out there and finding them. And this week, Sophia Bliss is going to explain exactly what it takes to be a rock hound and how you can get involved should you decide to. She's going to do that tomorrow night on the news at 10. A lot of people getting texts this afternoon, relieved about the status of the ESA bill failing in the Senate. 12 to 23 today, like this person, K&K in Boise, saying, thank goodness sanity prevailed on the ESA bill, at least for now. Keeping those fingers crossed, because yes, there's a lot more bills that come through. A lot of them probably rewritten to modify what they saw today and say, well, let's fix that, and maybe a lot more people will vote for it. Once again, the legislature is usurping the job of Idaho parents with their bill to limit attendance to drag shows for minors even accompanied by their parents. Where will this overreach end, says Lori. The fact the sponsors of the anti-drag show bill feel the need to clarify cheerleaders aren't a sex show tells us all we need to know about them, says Rod in Boise. And more on the parents involved in taking their kids to any of these shows. I've been involved in the gay community for years, says Dean in Boise, and there has never been sex acts at Pride or any other drag show. This is a waste of time. Burlesque shows are in bars where the bar is responsible for carding, which is obvious. Can a parent take their kid to an R-rated movie? If so, they should be able to take them to a drag show, says Marty and Eagle. Yeah, 17 years old. You don't even need to take your parent. If you're 17, still considered a minor, can go to an R-rated movie. And if you're under 17, all you have to do is bring your parent to let you in. It's as simple as that. How many of you have seen a movie that way, or taken your kids to see an R-rated movie? Wow, no kids to see J-Lo, Queen Bee, anything Kardashian? I think I love this bill, says Jill in Boise. And yes, Joe got a haircut and a beard trim. It does look good. We'll see you then tomorrow.